So how does the stock market work? In this video, I'm going to go over some basics of buying and selling stock and how you make money from buying or selling or just owning shares. Hey, how's it going? On this channel, we talk about stocks and options with the idea of allowing you to trade as a full-time job or maintain a full-time job. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. And today we're diving into how the stock market works. So a big basic thing of the stock market is buying and selling shares of stock. And if you're not so sure on what those is, go and watch my previous video where I go and explain into that in more detail. But buying and selling shares is really how you make money in the stock market initially. And if you want to buy a stock, that generally means that you think the value of that stock right now is undervalued for at some point in the future when you want to sell it for a profit. And when you want to sell a stock, that generally means you either just want the cash right now, or you think that the stock is overvalued right now and it's going to go down in price and you want to lock in that profit. Because when you own shares, you actually haven't lost money or gained money. If it only happens if you buy or sell. You only make money or lose money when you actually sell the shares that you own. Because that's all theoretical value, you only lock in your gains or lock in your losses when you actually sell your share and get cash in return. So if I bought a stock at $5 and then I sold it at $10, I would make $5 from that. But if I never sold it, it would still have that $10 value, but I would never have that money until I actually sold it. So then if the stock went up to 10 and I didn't sell it, and then it went back down to 5, I still would have just had no money gain or loss, but I would have missed out on that $5 gain. So how the whole transaction of buying and selling stock works is if I wanted to buy shares, I would have to find a seller of those shares. But how it works is you don't go out and find those people yourself. You actually have a broker that does it for you. And what that broker does is they kind of contact or bring both parties together and make that transaction happen. So I would go and contact the broker and say, hey, I want to buy 10 shares of Google. And at the same time, generally, a seller would be, hey, I want to sell 10 shares of Google. So we would both contact the broker, and then the broker would say, hey, I will make this trade happen for you, but I will take a fee for that. And that's what the brokers make out of this whole transaction is every time you buy and sell shares, they charge you money for it. And they facilitate the trade. So they would take my money for buying the shares and they would transfer it to the seller. And then they would take the shares from the seller and transfer those shares to me, completing that transaction. This is all done online and it happens really quickly because there are millions of shares traded every day in a lot of stocks. There's no problem generally finding a buyer or seller for the opposite position of your trade. But there can be some stocks that have really low volume of shares traded a day, and volume is just amount of shares traded. And stocks with low volume you can have problems finding a buyer or seller. And so these brokers they will sell the shares to you or buy the shares from you. And that's how they still make a market. So you're allowed to still buy and sell shares of those companies with that low trading volume. Generally, how you make most of your money is through buying a stock and then selling it at a higher price later in life. But there are some stocks that give away percentage of their profits to shareholders, and those are called dividends. And a dividend is essentially just the company deciding that they want to give out some of their profits to shareholders. And not all companies do this, but there are definitely a lot of the companies out there that do this. And it's on a per share basis. And what that means is that, let's say the company says that they want to give out $10 million to their profits. And so based on how many shares that they would have, they would divide that $10 million up between each of the shares that are out to the public. And so that could equate to, $1 per share given to a shareholder. So if you held 10 shares of that stock and they were giving $1 per share out, you would then get $10 just deposited into your account. And so then you could reinvest that or take that as profits. And a lot of people will buy dividend giving stocks, and they will just, if they have enough shares, they will just live off of those dividends. And so, they will get a check every how often dividends are given out, and they will just use that money to live off of. But you need quite a bit of money to do that. But still, dividends are a way to grow or increase your growth through a stock, because just because the company is giving away a percentage of their profits doesn't mean it's going to stunt their overall growth in the long run. And so you will still get share appreciation, or just the share price going up over the long run, allowing you to sell it at a better price than you bought it, and you will be getting those dividends throughout holding that stock. And so these dividends, they're given, it just depends on when the company wants to give those dividends out, but quite often they are either quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. So 4 times a year, 1 time a year, or 2 times a year. But that just depends on when the company feels like they either have profits to give, or they just set it up to always do that. Some companies will give 1 a year, and then the next year they'll give 3 dividend payouts. It just depends on how the company is doing. So what makes a stock go up or down? It really just comes down to basic supply and demand. If there's more demand for a stock, meaning people want to buy it, the stock price is just going to go up. And that basically just means that the current investors in that stock, they think that it's undervalued, and that in the future it's going to be worth more than it is now, causing them to want to go out and buy the stock, and that'll increase the price of it. On the flip side, if the stock is going down, that just means that people are wanting to sell the stock, either to take their profits or save their profits, because they would rather sell the stock at $40 instead of $30. And this causes a cascading effect to where people will try and be selling it at 40, and then someone will undercut them and say, I would rather buy it at 39. And that can cause a flash crash, or just the stock to go down really rapidly if the amount of people trying to do that is very rapid. But the basics of just how a stock price goes up or down is either to make it go up, more people are wanting to buy the stock than sell it. And if a stock price is going down, more people want to sell it instead of buy it. Hey, thanks for checking out this video. If you want to learn more about the stock market, feel free to check out any of my other videos or subscribe. And if you have any burning questions about the stock market right now, feel free to ask them in the comments below. I will get to them. And I'll catch you in the next video.